Test, mic check. All right, let's get her going, I guess. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Vernon Village Board meeting. Today is Thursday, January 19th, 2023, 7 p.m. I will call the Village Board meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance and a standing moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call and open meeting law compliance check. Present.
Present.
Gray.
Present.
Trustee Newman.
Present.
Trustee Dasher.
Present.
This meeting was noticed and posted according to law.
Thank you. First up, public comments. Are there any public comments? No public comments. Deputy Ward Hollingsworth is here from Waukesha Sheriff. His sheriff's report is 6D. If there's no objections, we can move you to the front of the agenda and put you back on patrol. Anything to report? I know I asked you before the meeting, but. All right, that's always a good thing. Thank you. Questions? No? For the sheriff? No? Okay. With that, thank you. With that, we'll go to item A, approval of the Director of Public Works job description. This was on our agenda last meeting, and we discussed it then. And if you had changes, send them to Brad, and Brad brought it back, just as we discussed.
So there was just some brief changes in there. Nothing over the top. We're just adding some stuff and removing others. We talked, I think I took that first one out that we talked about with the foreman, stuff from last time, and then there was just some minor stuff that you guys had sent me, included just some minor tweaks. I think some of the biggest one was like under knowledge and ability. There was some budgeting one added, and then also I think it was in that section, but it was also added. If it wasn't added in there, it was in another section. The ability to carry out performance evaluations on the staff. Beyond that, I think that was everything that was the changes that we had from this.
Yeah, I went through it in detail today again. And the only thing I noticed was in the old one, it talked about, under the abilities thing area, talked about the ability to mentor and train. And I didn't see that in the new version.
There was a section in there.
I see
It was,
third bullet down, ability to select, supervise, mentor, train, and evaluate staff.
Mm-hmm.
It's on this one anyway.
yeah, so. I mean,
It was more than that, because it was talking, the original one was talking about being able to work with people that are difficult to work with, which brought to mind some of the things that's gone on in the past. I didn't realize that was actually in there in the original job description. I don't know that it's critical to put it in here as long as you have that mentoring part and training part. I mean, the training is a big issue.
Right, and the evaluation conducts performance reviews of all subordinates is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only little thing, when I went through it, I saw a stray comma in the first paragraph, which is just, says snow, comma, and ice removal. It should say snow and ice removal. And then the computer skills, it had the Word package in there, but I don't know if we want to add the word email because that's kind of important nowadays. I would think everybody would have email or no email.
That has Outlook in there.
Does it? Word, Excel, and MS Outlook? Okay, there, that covers email. That would be good. And then on the education, I don't know if we talked about it. Do we say post-high school preferred or just keep it as is, high school diploma or equivalent?
It says preferred though, doesn't it?
Does it?
That was,
Oh, additional is in education preferred. I guess
Oh, okay, because
that covers,
yeah, I was looking for that word.
yeah, okay,
so that was also one addition.
right. Additional certifications, trainings, and education preferred.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Second, if there's anything you guys want me to change in there, just let me know. Beyond what's here, and we can do it, but if we're good, then we can approve it tonight.
So I'd be,
I would move to approve.
right, I was going to say, I've got some motion to, look for a motion to approve the Director of Public Works job description. Period.
I'll do that.
I'll second.
Any discussion or further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are now on to ordinance 2023-04, an ordinance amending section 58-9 of the Village Code relating to the Director of Public Works. This one we talked about a little bit last time, and make sure I get the right one here. One up. And I think Brad drafted this. It has not had legal review. We need to make all of our ordinances go through legal review. I just saw one typo under section 2 with the word hereby capitalized, so that should be lowercase. But other than that, I thought it was ready to go to the board and approve, subject to legal review. So I would be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2023-04, an ordinance amending section 58-9 of the Village Code relating to the Director of Public Works, subject to that one typo change, subject to legal review.
I'll make a motion to approve.
My only question for legal would be here is that, would be that, just in that first sentence, it says the village board may appoint a director of public works. I think we kind of talked about this, the process moving forward of how the hiring is looking to be done. My only question legal would be, is that true formal, is that boxing in the village to putting this in the public works director's court in terms of that? Now, some communities, I did do a little research before I put this together. Some communities go even further than this, but necessarily probably don't abide by what's in their code, while other communities keep it completely vague. The Village of Richfield, they don't have a director, they have a supervisor. The supervisor position is not even mentioned in their village code. And then the Village of Johnson Creek says their public works director is appointed by the village board. So I think the way it is, I'm fine with it right now, but I think it's just a question for legal, if it just needs to be the village board or their designee may appoint a director of public works. But the rest of this, I was all good with on this one specifically.
All right, so I would think those are legal points, and Attorney Macy, well, we have a motion with subject to legal review, right?
And correction.
Right. And corrections.
Yeah. The other correction I have is just the A's crossed out here. That should be not crossed out.
Oh, right.
This is a new document.
What was here is the red is what is, I've added, and the cross-out stuff is what is currently in the village code.
So, see, what was bothering me is I see right away, town crossed out and village inserted. So, I mean, well, that was an existing one. Except for, we say section 158-9 is what we're actually modifying, but we don't have 58-9 here. This isn't titled that.
This is 58-9.
A and B, right?
A, B, so 58-9 has two sections, A and B, and that's what is here. Is that your fault? If I'm following your question.
Well, yeah, that's how I read it originally, but then I realized, well, no, this is saying we're modifying 58-9. So at the top, when this is called 2023-5 or whatever it is, I think it was 5, 4. Why isn't it 58-9?
Isn't it
In
58?
Section 1 or in the title?
In the title.
So it's an ordinance to amend section 58-9.
Okay, it's an ordinance to modify 58-9. Why didn't we just revise 58-9? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, we could call it an ordinance to revise 58-9. If that's what you guys would prefer.
Well, I was wondering, I didn't get a chance to pull 58-9 today, because I didn't,
58-9 is, in section 1, the stuff that's there is its entirety of what's in 58-9. It has two sections, A and B. The red is what has been added, the crossed-out stuff is what is proposed to be deleted from it.
I understood that. Is it typical for you to make a new ordinance to modify an existing ordinance as opposed to just presenting a modified ordinance?
Traditionally, how I've seen it done is how I have it here, where it's ordinance to amend an existing section. The ordinance is, the ordinance 23-04 is a separate ordinance, and the only way to amend, create, modify, repeal sections of the village code is through ordinances.
It takes an ordinance to amend our village ordinances or village code.
The problem, I've probably disobeyed that, because I've redone a number of ordinances, and that's not how I did it. Many times we actually just modified the existing one. I'm okay either way, I just was confused reading it, what it was we're doing. Now, if you go look at 58-9 right now, it won't have any of this.
No, it won't have any of this. It won't, it will be what, take out the red stuff and it'll be what's there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's word for what's
So
there.
you- but a month from now, you go look at 58-9, and it's still going to say exactly what it did yesterday. So how would you know that it's been modified?
So we use the online code, we use general code online. So we'll send this to them. And then I think they will update it as needed. I don't know if somebody currently, I haven't looked at the ordinance section of the village website, or I probably have, I'm just not recalling. I mean, it's something that we could potentially put up there until it becomes modified in the code book. You know, this one's probably not as, I don't wanna say important as the zoning code or, something related to criminal, or actions that would be subject to forfeitures, that making sure, I mean, we still have to post this just like we would any other ordinance, according to our standards, but, this isn't important, so as, in terms of getting it out there, so somebody would know, and, somebody not knowing this ordinance isn't going to change the outcome of what somebody does, where the zoning code or something like that would have more of an impact than.
True, but the zoning code, we actually went in and changed chapter 300. We actually went in and made the changes right there in that.
In that. So yeah, so that, but, online, so this is, instead of me putting the entire chapter 58 on the ordinance. I just picked out this section to amend, instead of showing the whole ordinance. If that makes-
No, I understand that, yeah.
So what happens online? I just went to 58-9.
Yeah,
A and B, just like Brad said, it reads without the inserts
Right.
or the strikes, as it does today, right there. And then
but when it's codified,
when it's codified, so before it's codified, this ordinance
sits in the new,
sits in the new laws.
right,
And so a reader of our ordinances should always go to the new law and check,
there's the operative word.
always.
Yeah.
And then when it's codified, and we only codify every
Once or
so
twice a
often
year,
because
yeah.
it costs money, and it's a lot cheaper to do a bunch at, several at once. And I suspect once we pass an ordinance amending Chapter 300, our zoning code,
Right.
along with these other ones and some more with regards to the zoning code amendments, we'll go and codify the whole thing, because the zoning code be better if
That's
that
a big
was-
deal, yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big deal. That would be better to get it codified as quickly as possible, is what I would suspect. But if you just scanning down.
But even-
Just scanning down 58, when there is an amendment, for example, we amended village clerk, village treasurer, and it says amended 9/23/2020 by ordinance number, and it gives the ordinance number. So in the codification,
That's what
it will.
that's what I was
it will
looking
tell-
for.
Yeah, it will tell
Okay.
a reader, hey, this has changed, and give the ordinance number and the date. So this one, 58-9, will, when it's codified, have this
Right.
ordinance number and say it's amended by this ordinance and the date. So that's, I think,
So we have that window between when we approve it and it's codified, that somebody could miss this.
oh yeah,
Okay, that's what I was concerned about. But like you said, this isn't as critical as like 300 is.
Yeah, and just because it's not online is not an excuse for somebody not to abide by our village ordinances, at the end of the day. Because just because our online version is most likely not an official capacity, where our code book here would be the official capacity, and,
But it still won't be in the code book until it's codified.
Yeah, but-
I mean, that's,
but I think this ordinance should be put with the code now until it's codified, and those sections would be, until they're codified, then those sections would be updated, and then this ordinance could specifically be pulled out, so if somebody came to look at the code book, oh, here's ordinances that have been approved but are not codified within the code book yet. Somebody would know. I guess what I'm getting at is, just because it hasn't been codified in the code book doesn't give somebody an excuse to violate or not abide by our village code.
yeah, that's the old ignorance is no excuse, concept. Okay,
might be a reason, but it's not an excuse.
right.
But yeah, and we'll, it should be, Brad put it under new laws, and it'll sit there until, I would suspect, 300 gets amended, and then we'll send them all,
Yeah, 'cause
out.
Yeah.
We'll have 5 ordinances to amend, or 5 ordinance changes to make, depending on just what we'll do here in the next couple months. And then I don't know if anything was codified from last year, if there was any ordinances, so that would be another,
There were some hanging around. I don't think they were codified, though.
so.
Well, there's nothing shown as new laws, but we better.
Okay,
All right, so, are you good then?
I'm fine, yeah,
So we
thank
have a
you.
motion made to approve ordinance 2023-04 and ordinance amending 58-9 of the village code relating to the Director of Public Works with changes as discussed by the board, subject to legal review by trustee DeGrave. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion. Trustee DeGrave.
This is only, you said you took one section, section A. What about section B?
Section B is in there. Yeah, so it's A and B there.
It's the -5 below it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, or no, -5 is a different chapter, so A and B are here. Yeah,
So it is all included?
yeah, section 58-9 is all in the ordinance here in front of you.
Okay.
So,
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we're on to ordinance 2023-05, which is amending section 180-1. And on that one, again, it's been on our agenda last time. Brad's come back with a draft. As you can see, it's set up essentially the same way as 04, which 180-1 is in there. A and B and C are repeated with changes in red, which is town to village, and then strike-throughs, which is what was deleted in accordance with our discussion last meeting. And the only question I had there, probably a legal one, is the definition of roadway. Does that really belong here, or does it belong in chapter 290? But that's a legal question for Attorney Macy, I think, when we make it subject to legal review. Letter C it would be. It just seemed out of place to me to have a cross-reference dealing with the definition of roadway in section 180-1C when the definition itself is in chapter 290. It just, I don't know why it was ever done that way. But anyway, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2023-05, an ordinance amending section 180-1 of the Village Code relating to the Department of Public Works, subject to legal review.
Move to approve.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any discussion, Jim?
No, I'm good.
Ellen? Right, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're down to letter D, Resolution 2023. Which is the approving the schedule of cash deposits. It's bond schedule for 2023. And Brad, I see a typo right off the bat here in your schedule, but what has changed as far as the listing or the dollar amounts? I think everything's the same as the year
everything has
before.
been the same. Yeah, I see the one.
Yeah, the heading.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there, but
All these are the same. There was just a couple tweaks to just what was put on here. In the second line down, well, in the top, it was just more officialized, making it clear it should say cash deposit. Scheduled cash deposits, that is what it's referred to in our municipal code. We kind of refer to it as our bond schedule. And then what we have here is a forfeiture amount, which is what the fines are. And before, I think that said fine. I think.
fines, and we tried to clean it up last year. I did find my notes from December of '21, when we tried to clean up our forfeiture schedule. That's one of the changes. We used to call them fines, but they are forfeitures. And that one, we tried to clean that up so that it could go to North Prairie Court. This is going to be subject to approval by municipal judge in our North Prairie Joint Municipal Court. So yeah, it should be called cash deposits. I know we've called it bond schedule, but the technical term is in our ordinances, cash deposits. You'll fix that typo. And I suppose add the word cash deposits in the resolution at the heading as well. And we should make a motion subject to legal review if we want to, and certainly approval by the North Prairie Municipal Court judge. So I'll look for a motion, unless we've got early discussion here. motion to approve Resolution 2023-01, a resolution approving the schedule of cash deposits bond schedule for 2023 with changes made by the board, so that would include those typos and I suppose anything else we discuss and agree on, as authorized by the Village of Vernon Municipal Code, subject to, I said, legal review and approval by the North Prairie Municipal Court Judge.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I tried to find my old copy,
Okay,
and I couldn't find it. But in my memory, I'm thinking that there was a whole section that we didn't have forfeitures listed for. And I'm wondering, when did that get fixed? Assuming it got fixed? Or is that still the case and it's just those areas aren't listed on the new one?
yeah, I kind of remember something like that coming up after we
After we have,
adopted it.
right.
And Brad, I think I mentioned that to you. Now, I don't know at one time if there was any other changes that we had to work it, because your point of beginning was last year's schedule in December of 21, well,
December of
21.
'21. It might even been before that. There was some discussion I know that my predecessor had with the sheriff's department regarding it, but there was nothing ever, in the email I saw, there was nothing that indicated to me like there was something that was glaringly missing from the schedule. And going through here, it looks like everything's there. I mean, the big thing is you see traffic, traffic falls under the state stuff, but everything else, is stuff that falls under our private municipal code. And there's nothing that really jumps out at me like, hey, we're missing this citation, or this is some type of citation that we'll usually write for. So, it's hard to say if there's a big section missing, I'm just not seeing it.
I spent some time today trying to find that stuff myself, and I never did, get back date-wise far enough back into the meeting minutes to see when we were worked on it last. But it's just and it may have been something that we all agreed upon needed to be fixed and should be $100 a pop or something like that, and it was just put in.
I know there was, I think the big thing you guys clarified last go around with this was for fireworks, which went to $1,000 fine. And that was changed in here, and that's kind of the top of page 2, in that first section of page 2, third from the bottom of that first section, that was changed. I think that was something that was missed before, or was missed.
I know we had some changes made at the end, and I think those changes to, like the fireworks, the forfeiture were set by ordinance. And so this is a resolution and the ordinance controls, so I don't know how we could change the ordinance by resolution when we just got done changing 2 ordinances by ordinances. But that was fixed right before December of '21. I double-checked that. The fireworks one for sure. And a couple of other ones looked like it was fixed. I was just searching my emails a little bit, and I kind of recall what you recalled, Jim, but I'm not sure what,
Yeah, I don't have anything specific. It's just,
Now, there's no changes to this, we're just reestablishing it. It needs to go to the joint municipal court for
Right.
judge's approval. We could, if we wanted, I suppose, just vote this down and then table it to do a little further research, to figure out if there is something missing, and then we could just bring it back and put the missing piece in, now that you mention it.
I just don't know what
Missing
I don't
piece
have a
is.
clue what it was, but I do remember that we had a problem with it.
Yeah, there was some, and I don't know when this would have happened, except sometime over the summer or early fall, that we got an email from, I think somebody at Waukesha Sheriff's.
Yeah,
Or maybe the
I
court.
mean, it was, the conversation was this year, but in the email was never clear as to what was.
What was
missed. There
missing?
was just one email about this, and so I did talk with Deputy Hollingsworth
Oh,
before the meeting, so I will be reaching out to that person, and see what they have to say, but there was nothing, when I searched through the clerk's email that jumped on me like, hey, this was missed, this needs to be updated, in the scheduled cash deposits. But if you guys want me to just table it, get feedback from,
Well, we haven't had an issue with something being missing with the sheriff's office.
no, the biggest thing that Debbie Hollingsworth has shared with me is that, so they use, the sheriff's department and police departments use a system that has, this data should be uploaded into, and then when they write a citation, this data is automatically put into the system, and they don't have to do it manually. Right now, they're having to enter it manually because somehow this has never been entered into the system. So it's just a matter of that, and I think if you look at Attorney Macy's memo, he kind of outlines how the schedules of cash deposits were developed and why they, I don't know if you referenced why they were developed, but it goes back to just relationships between communities that didn't have police departments and the sheriff's department providing those services at will, and that the communities need to have this schedule. And so it doesn't mean that they haven't had the schedule, it just means that it hasn't been entered. And I think it probably comes down more to now that we have contracted services and they're writing more citations, that it's more efficient for them to have this, to get this stuff entered, so that the deputies don't have to look this stuff up or guess as to what it is.
right, I suppose that maybe that's all it is.
I mean, this isn't any worse than we had last year.
No, it's the same.
It's just basically the same. So
But we can always come back and.
right, that's what I was thinking. We can always come back.
Fill
I
in
will
missing pieces or whatever.
I'll personally keep looking in some of the other paperwork I have, but I'd be in favor of voting this in.
Okay, so we have a motion made and
Right.
seconded. So if you want to vote it in, we can always bring it back. If we find something missing, Brad, or Jim, or me, or anybody looking, or vote against it and then make a motion to table. You had a discussion.
Just real quick question, and that is, how come there isn't numbers associated with every violation? It's, what is it, ordinance number?
Yeah, that's the
There's a
ordinance.
number of them missing.
They could be.
And it's like, if this gets keyed into the system, doesn't there need to be
That's a good
an
question.
ordinance or something associated with it?
They filled in a lot of them from the first list that we had.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that that might be something else that we need to look at if we table it.
This might be a naive question as well, but the forfeiture for some of the things seems off. I don't know if that's our job to change, or if we are looking at that right now or should handle it
You
later.
mean off in terms of
Uh,
either high or low?
Well, like falsely impersonating a peace officer is the same forfeiture as weed control. That seems not enough, I guess. $100 for impersonating a sheriff doesn't seem.
And I don't have enough experience in this field to say, but,
This
don't-
could be a naive question.
I-
This could be more up to the.
And so some of these, like impersonating a peace officer, this could be in municipal court, this would be our municipal court citation.
Okay.
Where, like something like that, I believe the district attorney's office could prosecute at the state forfeiture amount
Okay.
potentially. More so, which then changes the,
Right.
you know, I don't wanna say the severity of it, but it changes that because I believe impersonating a peace officer or anything like that, I believe are felonies.
Right, that's my understanding. Like I said, this is kind of a naive question. I just don't know enough about it.
And to bring that into point, I know one thing that, and maybe this is just a repeat, there's parking on a roadway or, the parking citation amount is $100, and I believe, as Attorney Macy kind of explained, in our conference call with them as we were going over the agenda, is that past boards have felt very strongly that, parking on our roads overnight is something that, it's not something that the village of Vernon has wanted to see in the past. I think it probably goes a lot to how the makeup of our roads are, being narrow and not, cars parking on them can cause traffic issues. So that would be why there is the, $100 for, illegal parking or whatever it is called.
Right, and that is right in, that dollar amount is right in our ordinance.
Yeah, so,
And I would agree with that. I think we have too many hills to be, like right where I live is kind of a blind spot at the top of a hill. So I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. These would be municipal tickets as opposed to state violations of state
Right.
statutes, which they could also be arrested for on those two examples that you
Right.
gave. Whether you're falsely assuming to act as a public officer or a peace officer. Certainly, these dollar amounts, I mean, there's ordinances, that's dovetailing off state statutes, the 946-69 and 946-70. Those are state statutes. Certainly, we could, as a municipality, if we had to issue a ticket or our law enforcement had to issue a ticket, we could increase those, and that's the point of this schedule. They could be, 250, 375, 500, for example, or something higher than that. But yeah, I know when we did this in November, December timeframe of 2021, we did have a lot of discussion, but at the end, I'm not sure we ever did go, one by one by one, and people would say, well, what about this one? And we'd have a discussion and fix it, and then we go to the next one.
Well, and like you said, ultimately, if they're doing something that severe, they're going to get charged.
Right.
That was just, I guess, a question that I had. I'm not opposed to approving it tonight either, and coming back to it at some point.
and I would have to go and check the code. It might say in places that, like the parking one, may be amended from time to time by resolution. I wouldn't be surprised or something in there. I wouldn't be surprised if it does say something like that. I mean, that would be my suggestion in the future, is that anytime we're talking about ordinance changes that involve, citation amounts, we just put amended by resolution, by the village board, so that you don't have to go back and do an ordinance specifically to do it. And then you're just updating this annually to look at it more so than not to have those type of discussions.
Right, I would guess to your earlier point, Dylan, the ones that do not have an ordinance or a statute number on them, I'm guessing is because it's a statute and nobody ran it to ground to put a number in there. There's I see 4 places. There might be more, Dylan, so. I don't know how many you saw.
Yeah, I come up with 5.
5, you came up with 5?
Yeah, 5. But the ones under traffic, I don't
Yeah,
know,
there's 3 under traffic.
and I don't know if 290-1 covers that speeding on ice, negligent operation on ice, and unsafe driving fall under 290-1 under state traffic laws, or.
Oh, right, that could all be under
that could be,
290-9.
But to me,
There's a parental responsibility under juveniles and what?
and then the operating a vehicle without owner's consent probably do not fall under,
Oh, yeah, there's that one too.
137-7 probably does not cover operating a vehicle without owner's consent, would be my guess.
Right, that would be my guess, too. We can, any further discussion?
No.
Again, I guess the question is, are you voting it in or
Well, let's vote, find out.
table, and we will find out. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Letter E. Organized here. Okay, letter E, are proposed text amendments to the Village of Vernon zoning ordinance with respect to event barns, conditional uses, which is section 300-22B6. For petitioners Michael and Joy Alex, we had a public hearing in December on these proposed text amendments, and joint with Plan Commission, we received Plan Commission recommendations at that meeting. The board at that meeting tabled both proposed text amendments, and which we called expansion of floor area in a building from 10% to 20% was one of them, and we called the other one modifications to the definition of event barns for ease of use, but the actual proposed amendments is in the Alex's application, which is in your packet, plus you got them in January. You all heard, I think everyone was here for that public hearing, yes. And it was tabled to get some advice from Attorney Macy, as I recall, regarding the recommendation from the Plan Commission. The first recommendation on the 10 to 20% was recommending to deny it, to deny that proposed text amendment. The second recommendation was a 2-2 vote, and I think the discussion at the time was, what does that mean? And Attorney Macy, Brad, you were on the call too, said, well, that's your recommendation. It's a tie 2-2 vote. I don't know, Brad, is that a,
Yeah,
Fair.
there's just there is no recommendation from the Plan Commission, which does not prohibit it from moving forward to the village board.
right, so it's moved to the village board. You see Attorney Macy's comments. Brad and I, we're on the phone with him, and so the motions, and I had stated this in December, since the proposed text amendments by the petitioners were put in two separate categories. One, the 10 to 20%, and one, the definition, that at the Plan Commission, and we had the discussion that, in the Attorney Macy's view was, yeah, we could do them together, but the better practice is to take them separately. So the Plan Commission took them separately. I would propose the board takes them separately too, because we've got one, a recommendation of denial, and the other, 2-2. 2-2 vote, and Brad and I worked up some sample motions whether to deny, or if you're not going to deny them, to direct the staff. I've got some wording here I worked through with Brad this afternoon or early, or this morning or something, to direct the staff to draft the ordinance, because as we just got done discussing, this would be an ordinance change. There would have to be an ordinance making these changes. So it will be to direct the staff to make those changes. And the attorney comments were, it's all or nothing. This isn't take what was proposed and make modifications to it. It's take what's proposed and vote up or down.
But taking them as two different cases.
Right. Two different,
Right,
Motions?
yeah, two different zoning code amendments. One, like I said, is the 10 to 20% expansion. The other is the definition of event barn. So, I suppose let's get started. So the first, let's start with the expansion of the floor area in a building from 10 to 20%. The Plan Commission recommended to deny that application. And so, consistent with that, I will make the motion to deny the proposed text amendments to the Village of Vernon ordinance, zoning ordinance with respect to event barn conditional uses, section 300-22B6, modifying the expansion of floor area in the building, in a building from 10 to 20%, as submitted by petitioners Michael and Joy Alex, pursuant to the recommendation by the Vernon Plan Commission. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion.
During the meeting, the Plan Commission meeting, that was a 3-to-1 vote on this one, against allowing the expansion. I think in my particular case, I may not have understood exactly what was meant by expanding that 10% to 20% of the floor space. In my mind, it wouldn't be applicable to actually expand the building. That'd be a different issue then. And how can you expand the floor space and have it not expand the occupancy? You know what I mean? So in my mind, I'm thinking that we didn't want to expand the occupancy because that would actually be a different, again, that's a different issue that was taken into consideration when the whole CU was put together in the first place. And I think the overall assessment from the Plan Commission was to deny that expansion. So in this case, I'd still be in favor of the motion.
Yeah, and from my perspective is going back to the history of the event barn and putting it as a CUB and CUP, conditional use permit in our, or conditional use, sorry, in our code was an interest, at least on the part of some, in preserving existing ag buildings.
Right.
And repurposing them. And we did, our existing ordinance gives 10% leeway to expand them. And the petitioners want to raise that up to 20%. I'm not sure where the limit is, but there has to be a limit, in my mind anyway, that somehow we're no longer preserving existing farm buildings if we double their size. This isn't doubling, this is only 20. And a incremental increase, but incrementally you keep building and, getting them bigger and bigger, and then you wonder, what are we preserving? Are we just building a new building at that point? So that's why I was against that. The floor space is going to be proven be larger, from 10% to 20%. As far as occupancy, in fairness to the petitioners, I do believe they say the occupancy was not going to increase. It's just going to be a bigger building. And I think that is in their application.
It is,
Yes.
yes. I just didn't understand how that works. but-
Okay, yeah, okay. Fair enough. I just wanted to.
Yep.
I just wanted to get all the information out there. So that was from my perspective. Further discussion.
So I guess mine is more of a question. As opposed to changing the code, would they have the option to come in and ask for a variance on their specific property for their specific use case, as opposed to modifying the entire code?
I believe they would not.
Okay.
The variance is only granted based upon a hardship, and a hardship, I don't believe this would qualify as a hardship, but I would defer to our village attorney and to our planner on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to defer to trustee Newman about, that's a legal or planning question, whether, and it depends in part how that ordinance is written too, is whether a waiver is even possible.
Okay.
Because,
Because sometimes they are possible, like you say, and I don't know if that one
yeah, because,
is written that way, that there is even a waiver possible.
yeah, so the, you know, waiver to expand the building to have more space, that would not necessarily be a hardship, because the traditional variance hardship would be is you have a lot that isn't buildable. So let's say you have a lot that has a building envelope on it, but you couldn't fit, let's say the code says you have to have an 1,800 square foot house with a 2-car garage, and that 1,800 square foot house and the 2-car garage won't fit in that building envelope. That would be a hardship for a variance.
Okay.
Would be a kind of a text, I don't want to say textbook example. To me, it would be a textbook example, but variances to increase size or things like that would not negate a hardship per se, according to state statutes and the letter of the law interpretation.
Yeah, that was more of a curiosity thing, as I for the most part, agree with Carl on this.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our existing code, it's letter T. The floor area of an existing building to be used for an event activities may be expanded for event activities by no more than 10%, provided all building and zoning requirements are satisfied. This does not include alterations made to accommodate for items such as access or circulation, which will be considered on a case-by-case basis.
And that's
So
kind of
there is
what
some,
brought the
there
question
is
up.
something in there for access or circulation already.
Right.
And that can be considered.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of my question. I'm not sure what their intended use is, but,
And I'm pretty sure anything to deal with ADA compliance, that was all okayed from the beginning.
right.
So if they had to build ramps or something, that was permitted. You know, the old ag buildings are not gonna have a wheelchair ramp. Well,
Right.
okay, any further, are you good then, discussion, or trustee Nguyen, you,
I'm good, yeah.
okay, trustee DeGrave?
My understanding was the need for expanding that building was more for storage and those type of things. Capacity was already set based on the existing building. However, if they needed to have storage for the tables, the liquor closets, et cetera, that could be eating into the existing building, and therefore it's tough to pack the same number of people in that area. So I thought that 20% was still a reasonable number, up to, or no more than 20%, to accommodate for those type of things, because the occupancy was based on that original size. Am I misunderstanding that, or?
Well, as stated, the application does say the occupancy is not going to increase. What you just said,
Correct. Occupancy's not.
Not going to be
increasing, but they need-
increasing, right.
They need room for the kitchen. some
But
of
as
those
it's,
things.
as it's stated, it doesn't say what the use
Right.
has to be for the expansion. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we can only vote on the actual verbiage. And it doesn't limit that extra space to storage. At least that's my line of thought on it.
Right, it doesn't necessarily.
Right. So in the statute, it would allow you to do it for any reason you wanted to. Or in the ordinance.
Other, good? Any other, okay, any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and made and seconded to deny the expansion of floor area, just to be clear, because we're gonna get to the next one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1 to deny. Okay, now the text amendments as proposed by the petitioners, amending the definition of an event barn. And we had a big discussion on that, and I had comments on that as well as many of you. And our plan commission was split 2-2 on that. And again, as stated by Attorney Macy, it's all or nothing. And so there's, as written and as proposed, there may be, some may think that that is overdoing it. For example, the strikeout of selling, trade shows and so on. I know that was a big point made at the time that the conditional use ordinance was first drafted, was that there was going to be no trade shows and selling there. That has been struck, so that would be allowed now if it would get adopted. Also, the whole general public, and we all had that discussion at the Plan Commission. And as stated by me at the time, and I still have these concerns, after thinking about it for the last couple of weeks, again, this is in our zoning code, in the conditional use. There has never been a study or a review of how many other locations in Vernon this could apply to. This, what we're talking about, applies throughout Vernon. It's not specific to the Halverson House. It applies to everybody.
But it is specific to an event barn.
It is specific to an event barn. Right, exactly. And we came up with that. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be changed. I mean, we, the Plan Commission and the board at the time, came up with that, and it's a conditional use to allow an event barn in a residential area. So we had to balance a business being operated in a residential area, and as one Plan Commission said, well, you put some rules on that, including, number of events, number of people, and you can read them all. There's a long list of them in the ordinance. And so this would be loosening up the use to, as drafted, and you can read it in the application, what it would do. And read it, and it's going to do a lot. It's going to expand what can be done at that, and we talked about parking and, not parking, but traffic in and out, and it is, more than, what's typically associated with an event barn, and, that's where we split, I think, in the Plan Commission. So that's where we're at. We didn't get it. We got a recommendation at 2-2. So the board, again, can, take the recommendation or not. Here, the recommendation is more of a neutral recommendation, let's say. So to get things started, I was one of the Plan Commissioners who voted to recommend denial, so I'll just make a motion to deny the proposed text amendments to the Village of Vernon zoning ordinance with respect to event barn conditional uses, which is section 300-22B6, amending the definition of an event barn as submitted by petitioners Michael and Joy Alex. Is there a second? Motion will die for lack of a second.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Now, on the approve, Brad, well, you can chime in here if we want, but after talking to Attorney Macy, the motion to, if you're in favor of amending, the motion would be to direct staff to draft an ordinance amending the Village of Vernon zoning ordinance with respect to event barn conditional uses, section 300-22B6, amending the definition of an event barn as submitted by petitioners Michael and Joy Alex.
Correct.
That's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, this has been a point of contention from day one. What they have always wanted to do, in fact, they even did it before we had the conditional use thing all straightened out, was have events of their own, not just like primarily weddings, of course. It's a beautiful setup, great for weddings. But the planning commission and the board all agreed and said you could have 3 events a week. They don't even come close to that right now. Now, the events type is where the contention came in. Having them be able to run their own event, as an example, an Easter brunch or Thanksgiving luncheon or whatever, or Halloween, you know, some seasonal thing, where they control who's coming by virtue of, in fact, selling tickets to the public, but now you have a definite list of people, which in my mind is just like a wedding list. You got a list of people that are going to come. And the fact that we already agreed that they can do it 3 times a week says to me, well, that seems okay, fine to me with all the other things considered, because we're not going to have more traffic than we want. You don't have walk-ins, you know, like a restaurant would. So I don't have any problem in voting for this. To me, it's if we're interested in promoting businesses, that's an opportunity for the business to make money, which in fact that's what businesses are there for. That's all I got.
Other discussion? Dan, no? Don't?
I tend to agree. I think it's just kind of intended to clarify something that he could very well already be doing under the existing code.
Well, just so you know, on that point, he did do that, and that was in violation of the existing code, and we had a big hearing, a special hearing examiner say that and confirm that. So because of that, that's why he's coming in and petitioning to change the ordinance, in part. What about the other things struck? I'm referring mostly to the selling and the trade shows. Any issues with that? I mean, you mentioned the event being open to the general public.
Well, it's not if they're controlling who's coming
Well,
by virtue of selling tickets ahead of time.
it's still open to the general public. If you can buy a ticket and self-invite yourself. you're
Except
part
for
of it.
now he has a list,
That is
of
true.
the- which
Well,
is-
I think he does.
what the main criteria was. That it just wasn't walk-in traffic. Whereas a trade show is truly walk-in.
But it could be sign up. It could be buy a ticket. There's no prohibition to it.
My biggest issue is that we've authorized them to have 3 events a week. What difference does it make?
Well, the difference would be the traffic. I think that's why it was closed off to the.
But it's
general
no more
public in the
traffic.
in the filtering in and filtering out. You say the traffic's the same, but it's,
You only got 3 events a week, you know, so it's not gonna,
well, actually,
And limited
5.
number of
A
people.
a wedding, Fridays, you know, the definition of event includes more than just one day or one event. You know, the wedding, the definition. of
specifically
event-
for a wedding, you know, sure.
But, well, I don't know if that's just limited to a wedding or not. I'd have to reread that.
We haven't had any complaints on it so far. Now, granted, they're not doing those because they
doing
are
that, so-
abiding by the ruling that came out.
Right, and that to me is the issue. I
So
don't want
now-
complaints.
similar to my question on the last vote, is this something that they could come and get kind of amended to their conditional use permit instead of changing the whole code?
I would say the same answer, no. Which is why they're in here, why they're asking for these code changes.
Even if these changes were, you guys approve, if the current motion that's out there passes, and then the ordinance is approved, I believe they would still have to come back to amend their conditional use.
Okay.
So
But they
this-
will, you know.
Yeah, so this doesn't get, just because it's passed doesn't give, anybody carte blanche to carry it out if it's not in their conditional use.
Right, but they'll be able to amend their conditional use thereafter, so. That shouldn't be a factor one way or the other when you vote. They're asking for it to amend their conditional use. There's no issue, no question about that. I think Mr. Alex actually said that, or indicated it.
If we received a number of complaints, we could go and change the verbiage.
If you,
That was a question, not a,
if you approve this now,
yeah.
and then, I would hesitate to say that then you can come back and change it, because their conditional use would be grandfathered, I believe would be then grandfathered into that condition. And so it'd be hard to take away, that condition once it's already been granted.
Would be almost impossible to take away, absent some
Unless-
public safety type of
Causing a-
issue,
Causing a nuisance.
right?
Well, I've never had anybody call me to complain. I have had several people, because this has come up real often, in my mind. I've had several people question why we're giving them such a hard time, that they've gone to these that they went to some of these additional things that they had, and were quite happy with how everything went.
Right, my experience has been the opposite. Maybe I just get the complaints, not the compliments.
Well, we haven't heard any actual complaint.
I agree, there hasn't been any since when? Right, I haven't had any complaints for months and months and months.
But there were complaints plural?
Well, that's why it was brought up in the first place. Let's stay off the,
There was one complaint that I'm aware of, but it was entered by you, sir.
on behalf of some,
Well,
complaint.
that wasn't disclosed as far as that goes, as far as I remember.
but, further discussion? I don't know
Yeah.
what else to say. I mean, I said my piece here, and I said it, Plan Commission, so I have nothing further to add. Anyone else? Otherwise, we'll vote.
You restate the
The motion?
please.
Brad, you want to restate it?
Motion to direct staff to draft an ordinance amending the Village of Vernon zoning code ordinance with respects to event bar and conditional uses, section 300-22, subsection B, section 6, amending the definition of event barn as submitted by petitioners Mike and Joy Alex.
Thank you.
And that was made by
Juan.
trustee Solani, and you seconded it, didn't you?
I think so.
Yeah. Right?
Or be seconded by discussion.
No, I think you did second it, and then we started discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. So that carries 4-1. Okay. We are now on True Green 2023 contract. And I think that was tabled, it's back up, because we wanted, I think, clarification on exactly which parks or what it was, price was for which ones, and it didn't really say Heather Ridge Park or Vernon Village Hall Park. And now I think the new one does, and the prices are the same as what was quoted before,
Yeah,
which are up 6% or something.
6.5%, and both are treated twice, once in late spring and once in early fall. So I think we got everything questioned that came out of the meeting where this was tabled.
Did we get any other quotes?
We did not. This was brought forward, by Mr. Henneberry at that time. True Green's been our provider, at least last year, maybe the last several years. So we did not get any other quotes.
I had the exact same question, because I got quotes from True Green to do my lawn and a couple others. True Green was double what I ended up going with, and I had 6 applications. Because we had a problem with grubs just eating half the lawn, you know. Bam, it's gone now. But I thought their price looked high to me for what we're doing, for only 2 applications. But that's, again, a personal opinion, you know. It's a hell of a lot more than what I ended up paying for my little 5 acres. But for the amount, I would think we should get other quotes.
At least 1 or 2 others.
I mean,
I would agree. Especially because it's not even counting pre-emergent. Fertilizer's cheap when it's not pre-emergent.
So we'd be looking for a motion, as I just heard the discussion, to direct staff to obtain additional quotes for,
Comparison.
what did we call this, lawn care? Weed and
yeah,
feed,
well,
weed and feed, lawn care on both Heather Ridge Park and the Village Hall Parks. Fields, or however we're gonna say it. Parks.
yeah.
Fields. Maybe it's the.
Well, and they're only doing portions of the fields. As an example, of Heather Ridge, they only had the first 2 ball diamonds up there. They didn't have the 3rd one that we don't use that often, but,
Oh, I thought they did the whole
yeah,
area. No?
not according to the map.
There's a map in there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't I see the map?
It's a pretty small area.
Because the map is not coming through.
It was like
Page
the
50.
baseball
yeah.
diamond. Well, you don't have a lot of grass there.
Yeah, so basically just the baseball diamond area. Well, it looks like most of Heather Ridge Park.
Yeah, I thought that was all the fields, the baseball diamonds.
But not the one that down is closest to Center Drive.
I thought that was in the upper corner right there. No?
Not where, you may not be able to see it on that printout. They had a art-driven, written around it that
Oh.
told me it wasn't in it. You could only see 2 diamonds in it.
Well, yeah, I can see there's 2 diamonds, but there is a 3rd diamond that has.
Yeah, that's
grass on
outside
it.
of the,
That has grass on it in this corner, unless you're saying it's up here, which strikes me as, no, it's not up here. It's up here.
yeah, they're not covering the whole park.
Right, that's true. That's,
Which
because
is-
here they're not covering, definitely not here.
Yeah. And even worse, I shouldn't say worse, even a smaller amount on our fields out here. There seems to be a big chunk
Missing.
missing. Just because it's in the photograph doesn't mean that they're covering it. At least that's the way I interpreted it. But still, the bottom line is, I thought it was more expensive than it needs to be.
Okay, so,
But that's just,
right, so we have a,
did we get a motion?
I listed a motion to, I was looking for a
I'll make that
motion.
motion to go out for additional quotes.
I'll second
Direct the
that.
staff to obtain additional quotes for, weed and feed on our Heather Ridge and Village Hall,
Right.
Village Parks, fields. Obviously, we're not gonna fertilize the parking lots.
Yeah. I don't know that we've had any complaints on our grass the way it's been. And I know the specialty league that plays on our diamonds thinks we got the best diamonds around. So our dirt that we got out there, it's really, they really appreciate how good it is. So I'm not saying that True Green doesn't do a good job, that's
Yeah, I always thought Two
No.
Green did do a good job based on the feedback, including from DPW and the people who mow it,
mow it.
yeah, and the people who play on it.
But it's not a good business practice necessarily to just keep going to the same guy and not getting comparison quotes, because you get on an escalator and they're already telling you they're jacking us 6.5% or something like that this year.
I agree with getting more quotes, but would anybody be opposed to, instead of being less patchy, kind of at the Big Bend Vernon Recreation Center, the picture on the left, just kind of bridging the gap between, you know, that lower section?
Have them do the entire,
Yeah, just do the whole grass area, the whole maintained grass area. It seems useless to try and piece things together when weeds spread so easily.
we can ask them for a quote for what's here, and then also what would be to expand.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Because if it's not a significant amount, that'd probably be worth it.
People have ideas of companies Brad should contact?
I can get you the name of
I can get you
the one that we
Send-
use.
Send them the Brad.
Yeah.
You don't have to do them tonight. So you're looking at the rugby field, or the old rugby field that's pretty wet down there, depending on, you might not even be able to get into it in the spring, depending on when they come in. I think that is not on the picture.
Right.
Okay, we had a motion made,
Right.
seconded by trustee Gray. You got the motion? Everybody,
Go out for additional.
right.
Dylan's
Dylan seconded it.
Yeah, I seconded that.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Just make a note. Okay, next up is the RFQ for design work for Center Drive Bridge Project. Brad, why don't you tee us up on this one?
I had a meeting with the DOT last week, regarding this. So you guys received, were awarded a potential for grant for the bridge here on Center Drive. As part of being awarded that grant, the timeline for the grant was, or is, that we need to have design work and bid put together for the project by November 1st, so that the DOT can review it from November 1st of this year to early next year, and then go out for bid. They would post it, the official term is letting it out for bid next year. This time, the grant paperwork actually says it would be let on March 12th, which is a little later than I think what I've heard from them. But with that, and then that would put us in position for the bridge construction next year. With that being said, in order to get this design, the bridge design, and have bid specs put together by November 1st, we need to hire a firm to do the design work. The estimate for design cost was $255,000 in the initial grant application. So the first step in this is to create a request for qualifications RFQ to send out. I believe we have to let it out for about 3 weeks. From there, we let it out for 3 weeks, and then based upon feedback, or based upon submittals we get from the RFQ, the board would then use the qualifications that are set up in the RFQ to determine what firm would then design the bridge, and then after that's done, the firm selected, then the village would then enter into negotiations with that firm to negotiate the cost of the design work, which should come in where it was estimated. And then from there, they would then design the bridge and develop the specs for the project. Like I said, our kind of timeline is for this would be tonight, if you guys give the go-ahead, as staff will put together the RFQ, bring it back at the first meeting in February. If the RFQ is good and you guys are good with it, then we would send it out. I believe we have to send it out to 10, at least send it out to 10 firms, which the DOT has a list. We can come up with at least a list of 10 firms. You know, we would include both our current engineer and the List, there's Rupert and Milky, there's Stantec, there's Short Elliott and Hendrickson SEH, which is a national firm just like Stantec. There's Strand, there's AECom, there's a bunch of local firms that are qualified to do this design work, plus there's other firms in the state that are qualified to do it. So we just need to send it to 10 firms at the end of the day to do it. Whether all 10 firms send back proposals, that's their choice. We just go off of what we said as our qualifications to determine the firm and then negotiate. Fulth is not prohibited from submitting qualifications on this, or the next step of construction oversight. It's just that the firm that is selected for design and bid is not eligible to bid on construction oversight. So tonight I'm just looking for either consent or an actual motion to just direct staff to develop an RFQ. The DOT sent over kind of a boilerplate one, which we'll use. We can critique it to our own
Okay.
our own qualifications, our own standards. So we can write those qualifications to whatever we want, just like a job description, to judge off of somebody. So that's what we will do. Like I said, my hope would be is that if we get approval tonight to move forward developing them, bring it back at the February 2nd meeting. If it's good to go, then post it for about 3 weeks. And then from there, the first meeting in March, go through the firms that have been selected, or go through the firms that have submitted, make a decision on what firm meets the request for qualifications, and then from there, after that, we'd enter negotiations to do construction. Talking with the DOT, we are not alone in this timeline in terms of there's other communities that receive this grant funding that are there. In the same spot we are. So yes, we are pushing for time, but at the same time, I think we're still doable to get this done and move forward. As a reminder, this grant is an 80-20 split, so the village is responsible for 20%. The overall cost of the project was estimated at $1.85 million. I think it's probably fair to assume now that it's probably a $2 million project easily, which then puts us on the hook for $400,000. This year we've budgeted for $750,000 in road work. Some of that was funded by ARPA, so we may use up all our road funds next year for this project, but it would complete it. So it is just one thing to consider as we move forward, and until we get, until we start to see bids, our cost estimates are only cost estimates. Hopefully when they were put together conservatively to do so, and the cost of the project comes in where they've been estimated, and hopefully you can see some savings across the board. One question I did pose to the state was, how are these expenses paid for in real time? The state, one option that they came back with, the state would pay for them and then invoice us for our 20% of the cost. So the village does not have to upfront $255,000 and then seek reimbursement of 80% from the state, which is, it just becomes a cash flow issue for the village, a village of our size to come cash flow something like that, more so than anything else. But we could come up with a means to do it. But I think talking with the state, we don't have to worry about that at this time.
Brad, you mentioned the DOT has a boilerplate RFQ that we can look at. Who's going to be helping us look at it, and who's going to be helping us decide who to pick to do the design work and who to pick to actually construct a bridge? If Fulth is going to be bidding on things, Fulth should be helping us do that, shouldn't they?
So if Fulth helps us, they're not allowed to assist in the other portions of the project. So with that being said, Fulth is more than allowed to bid on all this work. Should they be selected for design and spec, then they would be necessarily not eligible to do construction oversight. But I don't think necessarily that that would prohibit them from providing us or advising us in the future. It just would not be an eligible cost for reimbursement. But I think, vice versa, my experience in the field can drive us to at least, look at firms. There are tools out there that we have access to that allow us to view how engineering firms are, if they have any complaints, anything that's gone wrong with projects they've been involved in. And then also, we can look at the state, and the state can provide us and tell us, hey, these firms are qualified. Naming the firms that I listed off there, Ruber, Milky, Strand, Stantec, SEH, Kapoor, Fulth, AECom, pick any of them. These are all firms that do a large amount of work in civil stuff and more than qualified for it. And so that ability is there, I think, as a firm, or as we look, and one of the qualifications we may say is that when we pick a firm, that does all the work in-house. Not speaking bad of any engineering firms, but some engineering firms will farm out work to other engineering firms because they don't have the expertise, things like that. So it is there. I think as we look at that qualifications, we can say that we're looking for a firm that has done this work in the past, or proven work in the past as a qualification. I think we have to be open, as there is a lot of money out in the market right now through Build Back Better, COVID stuff. There's a lot of funds, and engineering firms are still really busy. We have to just be cognizant that what firm we select, they may have a specialist who design bridges, may not be in their Milwaukee office, and maybe locate another office within the region. Is more than capability. That does not mean that we're going to get subpar work. It just means that's where the workload is. To provide an example that you guys are familiar with, Applied Technologies, who is another engineering firm that I think you guys are familiar with, at least some of you are familiar with, a good engineering firm, and are specialized in several things, including probably one of the premier wastewater treatment plant engineers in the area. But they can do civil work, but one, I would be surprised if they've been on a project like this for design work of a bridge. But two, I don't necessarily know how many experts they have in-house to do something like that. So as we write the qualifications, we can write them to do so, and we can use them to help, I don't want to say eliminate firms, but we do have that. And what we've been hearing from the DOT is that even though we send this to 10 firms, they're not seeing 10 firms respond. They're lucky if they're seeing 1 or 2 firms respond. So, like I said, the amount of money that's out there in the field right now is driving the market to not get a ton of firms to respond on top of it. So, I'm not necessarily concerned that we won't find a firm that is capable of doing this design work.
Yeah, I was more concerned that, well, let me just think about our village engineer. He helps us with our road projects. He writes the bid specs. He oversees it. He inspects the final product. He will provide a recommendation on which road builder we should retain to do our whatever particular road project. And we do it every year. This is a bridge that hopefully will last 50 years or more. And certainly the board, I'll speak for myself, but I would guess I'm speaking for everybody on the board, they're not civil engineers. We have no idea on what those bridge specs should even be, let alone writing an RFQ. And I understand there's boilerplate language, so that's helpful. But who's going to help us sort through whether that's, who to hire just to do the design work? And you said, well, we can look them up and that kind of stuff, but yeah, but Andy helped us choose between the road builders.
And so when it comes time to choose, so For this, it's gonna come down to, you know, as we get going in this process and we write the RFQ, once we start to see feedback, we can always put in the RFQ, need to be available for the first board meeting in March, or we could set a special meeting date to have them come in specifically and present to us, if you guys just don't wanna review the materials. And so,
I don't mind about reviewing materials. I mind about the decision-making process of picking someone. And it'd be nice to have an expert opinion to help us with that. An engineer, someone in the field to help us, just like we have our village engineer help us pick our road builder.
and, you know, who knows if both will bid on this?
Well, yeah, if they don't bid on it, then
Then they
If we- then they can do it.
provide us some input.
Right.
But like I said, we can provide qualifications and we can make decisions, I think, based upon the information that they give us to hire a competent firm. Like I said, any of the large firms in the area, and even some of the, when I say large, they're regional, even some in-state ones, like you may have heard of Town and Country, things like that, those firms may be, even the smaller ones, should be competent enough and skilled enough to design the bridge that we need, because the bridge down here is not, we're not building a unique bridge. This isn't the Golden Gate Bridge or something like this. It's just a normal bridge.
Should be the standard specs, I mean,
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I think as long as we get a firm that is large enough and has, you know, some of the qualifications we can put on there is who would be doing the, you know, who would be doing the work, who would be doing the design and spec, have they done other bridge designs? You know, so you're creating a reference, list of what it is, and, I think based upon what I know is this board probably hasn't gone through like an RFQ for, you know, engineers or planners lately. You know, the closest thing you've done is maybe assessors and, auditors, but it's the same thing, you know, there are some expertise in the room in some of those areas, but sometimes there's not, and you're just trying to go off what you see to make those decisions, and I think, you know, I'm here to provide input. You know, we can potentially talk to the DOT to provide input on, you know, is this firm qualified to do the work or not at the end of the day. Right, like I said, I think, and I can tell you that, you know, if there are certain firms that apply, if, you know, definitely I'm here to assist to tell you, yeah, they're qualified or not. And I think sometimes it's easy to get the information from them to see, if they are out over their skis in this project at the end of the day. But like I said, a firm like Fulth or similar sized firm is going to have individuals that have the skill sets that can design this bridge, and be successful at designing it and it not be, an exorbitant cost to the village to do so.
this isn't something that we have much of a choice about. I mean, the bridge
Eventually,
needs to be
it's going-
replaced.
Right. Eventually, it's going to be, the question is timing, to me.
Right.
Whether it's 24 or 26, I was hoping maybe it would be 26, but.
I was thinking it was gonna be further out too, just from a budget standpoint,
Right.
but we don't wanna risk 80%, you know,
right.
the grant money, that's a lot of money.
Right. The grant money is important, more important than the.
Now, we also know that one of our neighbors just got done doing a bridge on National Avenue,
Our big neighbor.
our big neighbor. So it might be worthwhile talking to them to get some input. You know, I mean, and the other part might be the league.
Waukesha County DES Bridge.
Yeah, we can, and I believe
Yeah, the
that
league too.
the county might do all their work in-house or contract out, but they use firms like Kapoor, which is used by a neighbor of ours, or Strand, or things like that. They're not going to, firms that are necessarily national firms, like, SEH, which is a national firm, but has a local presence here in the area. Stantec, a local presence here in the area, but is a national firm.
But they might do the design work, which is really what we're talking about at this point.
At this point, it's design.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's the thing is that, We're not necessarily going to be doing this based upon price, but based upon, do we feel they're qualified for it? And that's what we're, looking to do based upon the feedback here. I think, one of our qualifications that we need, that I'm gonna take away to write in the draft of it is that we want, references and, examples of previous projects that have been designed by firms, locally here in the area, but also within the state. More so, and we can put preference, more preference on firms that have done stuff locally than firms that have not done stuff locally.
Other questions? Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion to direct staff to draft an RFQ for design work for the Center Drive Bridge project.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Brad and I were talking about a future staff meeting. I'm not sure if a motion is needed here, but it's on the agenda for, I suppose, a date and possible agenda items.
Or at least if there's interest in it. Some potential items would be, the village newsletter, along with, as I brought up in my last, staff report at the last meeting, is we did have, an individual, or there was an individual that, did leave the village a potential donation in their estate, and the village should have a discussion regarding that, potential option to accept that donation, and a staff meeting be an appropriate time as the village planner and village attorney would be present to provide input to the village board. I believe that would probably be a closed session, but that would be a conversation for the staff meeting, plus if there's anything else, we may have a Polar Works Director at that time, if the meeting's probably held 30 days out, but I think there is some need for a staff meeting.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to see something on staffing in general, on where we're at, where we're headed. There's another, I just had another
Office
brilliant idea.
Office staffing, DPW staffing.
Yeah.
Even fire department.
Right. And specifically on the fire department, in the APAs coming up, we have a number of invoices for reimbursements of clothing, boots, T-shirts, I don't know what else. And it came to mind that in the employee manual, we say specifically what is being purchased for them and reimbursed, and I don't know any of that for the fire department. I saw like 3 different types of boots that were being purchased. Is that what, I don't know if they have this is a standard list that you gotta have for all of it, but I'd like to know what that list is. So partly so I would know what the cost per adding a new person is all the time. To get a feel for the turnover. I'm not knocking the turnover rate, it's just that we know we got it because people move on to bigger and better, rescind that, bigger outfits, full-time outfits. So we're gonna have a turnover. I'd like to know what it really costs. So I'd like to get something to the fire department so that they could tell us what they reimburse and what they don't reimburse. And I'm not certain why we're doing the reimbursements that we're doing, but, I don't know what all they need, so.
We could probably have a staff meeting just with the fire department, with a number of issues.
That's probably true, yeah.
I mean, I know, anytime, I'll speak on behalf of myself, we try to keep meetings to 2 hours just because that's about all you can absorb sitting in a meeting. But these are all good. I mean, it's on the agenda for, it's on tonight's agenda for
Right.
agenda items, and try to set out a date. Yeah, yes, the estate, the newsletter, you could even put a survey in there, talk about that, the fire department, clothing reimbursement, fire department staffing, office staffing, DPW staffing. May have a DPW director on board, who might be able to, in connection with that, go through the road projects. We got what's the status of the road projects?
Bids will be open next week, Wednesday the 25th, so potentially, if the board wants to, they can approve the bids at the February 2nd meeting. If not, they can approve it at the February 15th, February 16th.
Right.
Because usually there's about 30 days or 45 or 60 days to approve road bids. So we will have time to look at those. So road bids are coming, our road bids were still on track even with the staff transitions. So that work should not be, necessarily delayed. We should have somebody placed by then, but bids went out with what we expected.
So there's that with the new DPW as well. We also have the litigation regarding the cell tower siting on Artesian Avenue, coming in February. Keep that in mind. The parties have agreed to get their position papers in and responses by 20th tomorrow, and then responses by February 3rd. So we won't do anything on that until sometime after the 3rd. But we're into February. We're trying to pick a date for a staff meeting. Of course, we have to coordinate schedules with the board, staff, attorney, both, whoever we need there, depending on the agenda. So we're into February for sure, and maybe March, I don't know. And the cell tower, that's a big time commitment, so. It's hard to schedule something without knowing when that is, because,
It puts almost everything else on hold,
right, until that's
you know?
done. And heads back to court, I might add.
Yeah.
Likely, not guaranteed. So Brad, what do you, I just flipped open my paper calendar here, but
I don't know how you guys have traditionally scheduled these, to work with Sean and Andy and Attorney Macy on scheduling. If you talk to them and look to try to gather dates from them first and then come back to you guys, or how that has specifically been handled.
yeah, we used to have these quarterly, and of course, with our staffing situation, we stopped that just because of everything else going on. And we used to try to schedule them every 3 months, and
We need to get back into that.
we need to get back into that routine, if you will.
Yeah.
Which means, to me anyway, getting something on the books for February or March, and then go 3 months thereafter.
Maybe the end of March, somewhere in the, or the end of February rather, would be appropriate.
Yeah,
Like last week of February, first week of March.
yeah, last week of February starts February 27th. We do have a board meeting on the 2nd of March,
And the 16th.
and the 16th, and Plan Commission on the 8th.
The week of the 20th, we have election on the 21st, but that does not rule out in the afternoon on the 22nd or all day, or the 23rd.
Yeah, I may not be available that week. But yes, there's a primary election on the 21st.
Would you guys
And there
like
will
me-
be an election, there will be a primary,
would you
state
guys-
Supreme Court.
Would you guys like me to reach out to the four professional services? I think what traditionally you guys have held them on is Thursdays in the past.
Yeah, Thursday afternoon, starting at like 1:30.
Would you like me to reach out to our professional services, that being building inspector, engineer, attorney, and planners to see what their availability is for like the 16th, 23rd, 2nd, and 9th. Granted, you are gonna have the 23rd, you're not gonna have meeting, and the 9th, you're not gonna, 9th of March, you won't have meetings. Or even the 9th of February too, if that's too soon, but,
I would think putting out a couple, 3 dates or something like that would be a good plan. We've got plenty of time in between now and then to finalize the dates.
And then we can always shift it if we have to, if it's
Yeah.
that far out in advance. If there's some artesian, the cell tower thing.
And are you guys fine if those days work for find out what dates work for our professional services, and then reaching back out to you guys to potentially set a meeting date on either February 9th, 16th, 23rd, or March 2nd or 9th, should it work for all parties involved.
23rd, I'm potentially not available on the 23rd. That's up in the air right now. Of February. But otherwise, the other ones ticked off are okay for me anyway.
It's fine with me.
What time do those meetings start, like 1 or?
1:30?
Yeah, 1:30 usually,
Yeah.
in case someone has a lunch or a seminar or something. Gets them here. Gets them, they can do that and then still get here by 1:30.
Yeah.
Strict lunch schedule. Some of us eat at the exact same times every day without failure.
And then they drag on past 4 and everybody's exhausted.
They do
We
that.
gotta, but we gotta try, Brad, if we can, try to get control the agenda, and if we need to, have a special one for the fire department or DPW or whoever,
Okay, I'll reach out to our professional services and, get those going. We do have a meeting on the 2nd of February, which we could set the stuff in stone, but,
well, you could shoot everybody an email and say, here's what we're looking at, so.
I guess comes down to if you guys wanna have a staff meeting and a board meeting on the same day.
Brad, this was kind of an afterthought of the True Green thing. We should, somewhere in the RFP, say that they have to kind of work around the schedule for the, somebody help me out here. Recreations
The
department.
baseball, yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So that
the
they're
rec
not-
department and our field rentals.
Right, so that they're not applying pesticides on the same day as kids are out there playing baseball.
Good point.
I think that first application comes early, but,
Yeah, it'll come down to where the applications are, and then
Right.
also, looking at when we have rec programs, would be new, I just don't know if we have rec programs, during the weekend, or if they're not on the weekend, then,
Yeah, I'm not sure either, I just
if
think
they're
it'd
like
be,
Monday through Thursday night, then, it means, okay, you gotta really kinda try to get us in on a Friday, or have to state to us that the chemicals you're applying are able to be,
well, DATCAP requires at least 24 hours, so that's a state thing.
but I can talk to them about that.
Yeah, even if it's just every, they have to check with us 30 days before they do any applications to just cross-check our recreations department schedule or whatever, but it should be at least something we think about.
okay, you got enough, Brad, to go with on agenda item
Yep.
H? Anything further on H? Otherwise, we'll go to the Waukesha County Recycling Intergovernmental Agreement. This was a follow-up item from the fall.
Yeah, this would have been from your last staff meeting even. Most of the communities have approved it. One of your packet is version 3, or, version 3. It's been approved by the communities, so staff is recommending approval, of it.
And this has gone through attorney review. We were part of a consortium of communities to split the legal bill on review, and I think Waukesha County did make I can't say all, but many of the changes as recommended, and this is the final draft that was adopted in our fellow municipalities. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve and authorize the village president to sign the Waukesha County Recycling Intergovernmental Agreement as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We've seen this before, so. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And last time on our regular agenda here is, we talked about this, the vending soda machine in the back hall. Brad?
Let's say you guys countered at $200. Mr. Henneberry recountered at $350. The village wants to purchase it for $350. We can let him know. If not, they'll let him know that he can schedule time to come pick it up. From my perspective of staff, I've said that, we do have a refrigerator right now where we could start a kitty. I think the staff does use, does buy product out of there on a regular basis. I think probably during summer months probably gets a little bit more use. But like I said, I think there's options should the village ever want to do it. But Mr. Henneberry is asking for $350. He would, talking with him, the village will take the position if he could take the funds that are in the machine right now, and the village would keep any remaining product in the machine, should we choose to purchase it.
So we're either gonna look for a motion to, well, I guess there's gonna be a continuum of motions, but motion to approve the purchase of the vending soda machine for $350 under the terms presented, which would be the money in the soda, the product in the machine and the money in the machine.
Yeah,
The sodas stay here and the money goes,
yeah.
okay? Or we make a motion to decline the offer to purchase the vending soda machine for $350 and direct staff to have it removed, or something else. Thoughts?
You guys want it?
They, the employees want it?
I haven't really asked, but I don't, like I said, I don't think staff, like I said, it gets used, it's not like it sits there and collects dust, it does get used. So staff does take advantage of it. The machine sells soda and water, so it does get used.
Somebody will have to maintain it, stock it.
Which.
All of that,
which
and
we
the
have a-
electricity, yeah,
Which
all of
we have
that.
a Costco membership. You look at it this way, our refrigerator in the kitchen down there, it's not huge. Would we be able to get some soda in there? Yes. The variety that we currently have, no. But you still have the same, same thing. Like I said, we have a Costco membership. We can go to, they can say whoever's got soda, Costco necessarily doesn't have the best price on soda all the time, but, go to Festival, Piggly Wiggly, Pick and Save, pick whatever store Walmart, whatever you want on a regular basis, restock the machine. Enough for the village to, whether it's remain at 75 cents a can, or the village says, hey, we can, the machine can be restocked at 50 and cover the cost of the electricity, whatever it is, at the end of the day. So it's not necessarily there, as I told President Fortner earlier, if we bought a separate refrigerator for soda, it's hard to even find a refrigerator for $350 these days. The soda machine might last 2 weeks, might die, you know, the day after we hand the check over, or it may.
That's how it usually works.
Or, yeah, or it may last for another 20 years, who knows?
That's why I was thinking 200.
So, you know, it's a risk we take. Like I said, it does get used. You know, I can see staff going either way at it. You know, it's not a big loss, or, you know, I don't think we have staff that's gonna be like, oh man, how come it's gone? But at the same time, I can see staff saying, oh, it's a nice nice option to purchase solar. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase.
For $350 under the terms presented.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll
Going
second.
once. Okay, there is a second. Any discussion? We had heard from Brad, heard from some of you.
What budget line does that come out of?
to me, I would think it would just kind of go in and out of like the miscellaneous.
We have one?
We probably have more than one.
That was a facetious question.
Yeah, whatever, you know,
Sorry to
whatever line
hear
item
that.
we want to put it, and we can put it towards DPW, we can charge it towards the village board, we could, you know, fire department, wherever we want to,
Gonna have to have a raffle for us.
so.
Well, I wouldn't do it against the fire department. There might be an issue with certain people.
But, yeah, to me, you know, to me, it's an in and an out. It's, you're showing
Alright.
the revenue come in from it per se.
Oh, that's
And
true.
then your, you know, when you get the expense to go purchase soda, it's,
Yeah, you just have a vending machine account. Money comes out, money comes in. That's what you're saying, basically.
we can create a new account when we get the new software.
Cool.
Any other discussions or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, motion carry, nay, motion carries 4-1.
There's always one. Sorry.
Correspondence. Village President, you see the openings as usual on the agenda. A couple of things. One is I mentioned earlier regarding the cell tower siting on Artesian Avenue and the position papers due by the parties in litigation January 20th tomorrow and February 3rd. And so the board can expect to hear an update sometime after the 3rd. And hopefully scheduling what we need to schedule. I did receive resident complaints. I think Administrator Calder knows about them. The brusher being used as a tree trimmer on Hillview. I did talk to you about that. And also I did receive a call about somebody who paid or tried to pay their taxes on Point and Pay. And that person did say they talked to you, Brad, and you were looking into it.
Yep,
As far as getting it receipted through the county.
yep.
I'm not sure what happened on Point and Pay. I know we've had issues in the past on Point and Pay. But there is somebody loose there.
Yep, we got both of those, talked to DPW crews. They've been working out on Hillview and another street over in that area with the, I can't think what they call the machine now, but, cutting trees. The bucket truck was up getting its certification in Appleton from the first year and came back this week. So crews will be out next week cleaning up those trees that the brushing head was used on to give them a nice clean look. So they'll be out there next week cleaning that stuff up. And then also with Point and Pay, emails were, I talked to the county today on that. We had roughly almost 100 transactions through Point and Pay to date. The emails, we traditionally should receive an email, if not for every transaction, daily regarding these, and no one in the office has been receiving it. I did talk to the counties, like business manager today who handles that stuff, or the person, records manager for collections and whatever she is. And she was able to send me who's all paid, the bank is getting that stuff uploaded. And
Okay.
then they also gave them updated email addresses, and she's talking with them to make sure we get updated emails so we get that stuff. So, we should have that rectified here.
Was the person who actually you talked to on that list?
I didn't go through it, but what they sent me, I would believe that they would be on there.
Okay,
So I didn't go through, but the dates that they gave me lined up with, when potentially that one person was.
what, did they give you an idea of how soon that was going to happen?
So all of the, people that have paid so far, that was taken to the bank today. So they'll get those put into the system, and that will be updated. And then, I don't know how soon we'll see the emails start to filter in, but we can continue to check in with the county on a regular basis to say, hey, we haven't seen anything, when can we start getting it? But, my email was given and, Treasurer Karen
Karen
Reed's
Reed's.
email was given, so.
Good,
We should get it, they did have my email on record, I haven't gotten anything, and then, former Treasurer Terry Wodowski's email was on file, and that is potentially why we weren't seeing some of those, emails, so, we'll see what happens, but I think we've gotten it rectified, at least we know where to call now to get the information, and the people that have paid it will be, put into the system.
okay, that's good. Property tax, just as a reminder, property taxes are due January 31. First installment, anyway. You pay in person at Citizens. Or follow the flyer in your tax bill. But that's all I had today. Trustee Solani.
I have nothing new.
Trustee DeGray.
Nothing.
Trustee Newman.
Nothing.
Trustee Tashik. Okay, Fire EMS, I think that report's in the packet, is that right?
No.
No,
No.
it's not in the packet. Okay, so we're missing that. You'll get us that, I suppose, later. Sheriff's report, we heard from the sheriff at the beginning of our meeting. Administrator clerk report.
We've gotten 6 or 7 applications for a DPW director that closes, a week from today at 3:30, or doesn't close necessarily, but first review will occur after that. So that will begin. Property tax collection's been going fairly well at Citizens, pretty seamless. We'll, look to approve the first settlement, which we had collected roughly about $7 million. $1 million of that was ours, well, $7 million, $1 million that was ours, and then, the remainder was split between the other taxing jurisdictions. That put us at 52% collected total, and we'll probably end up somewhere between 70 and 75% by the end of 1/31. And so that's been going well. We have had we've had a lot of calls as of late about receipts. I think as we put in the handout, people could pick up receipts here at Village Hall. Everything through the first of the year is up to date on the county's website, and even some of the stuff after the first of the year is on the county's website. There is some delay at times getting that, but those receipts are there. And then 2, a lot of questions that we've gotten from residents, why did we switch, and things like that. And we, just saying it's been a board decision, but I did have to stop up at the county yesterday to drop off dog licenses and also have the treasurer's office sign 2 checks over, or endorse 2 checks because they're made out to the county treasurer's office. And did ask them because the county treasurer's office does collect taxes for other municipalities in the county, and they do collect for 16 municipalities in the county. I think 1 city, it might be Delafield, 1 or 2 villages, and then the rest are towns. So there's 16 communities there. I think we have 36 municipalities in the county. So roughly, over a third does that, plus 3 communities, us, Genesee, and Town of McGuanago are collected by Citizens. So almost half the county is collected by somebody other than the municipality. So we are not unique by any means of imagination. I just know that it's been a change for residents, but I think so far so good. Everybody's been good with it and understanding, and I think it's worked out well for both us and citizens.
Good.
Can I ask a quick question? Has the process gone well with citizens?
Yes, settlement was, nice and smooth, everything balanced out really good. I think I talked with Becky, their branch manager up there today. You know, a lot of the questions we get are, when do people pay? Citizen processes their batches in like 40 parcels at a time. And so, they kind of send over, they were sending Karen Ray like these batches every time a batch was done, they'd send it over, so daily, every other day. Next year, as I told citizens, is as we start the process, take those batches and then just insert them into one Excel file so that as staff, we can search and say, hey, Mr. DeGrave called today, he lives at this, guess you've paid, or no, citizens hasn't put it in the system, it doesn't mean citizen has it, but until we get the next batch, we don't know, but we can, if you call back tomorrow or you call back in 2 days, we can verify for you what's there. A lot of the questions, and some of you guys may have seen this with your own personal mortgages, either now or when you've had one in the past, is some of the bigger banks will send their money to a clearinghouse, and so the mortgage holder sees on December 10th, the bank sent the escrow money to the clearinghouse. Well, the clearinghouse doesn't necessarily send the check on the 10th, they send it on the 30th. So there's sometimes confusion on that. So beyond that, that's typical of anywhere, but it's been really good with citizens. Worked through a couple small kinks, but nothing that has delayed anything, but it's worked out, really well.
On the payables? On the payables. Accounts payables, January 19th, 2023. I did notice Mr. Hayes does not have has his monthly check. I don't know if it's not on the list. Did that get accidentally missed?
That was put into their stipend.
Not the $50 though.
But the resolution said their stipend included the $50.
Well, Chief Feldy, Assistant Chief Hayes, Deputy or Battalion Shuplis and Machuski all have $50 checks. Mr. Hayes does not. $50 on the cell is a check, and then the balance is in their W-2. Per the
Was it
resolution.
Hayes that was just retiring?
That was Feldy.
That was-
Feldy,
That was
okay.
Feldy.
I'll have to go back and look and see why he was missed. If he was, we can put it back into their next go around for pay, so it would double up.
Other questions? Otherwise,
Capital One
Okay.
bills. I noticed that we've got two different Capital One bills, one for Karen and one for Mike Solecki. Why don't we just have one Capital
One bill.
charge bill and then issue cards under that one bill? Cause then you can easily get rid of a person's charge card without affecting the entire account.
So, and that's, I think, I'm not sure how the Capital One was set up here. I think it was set up by person, not by like business account, which I don't necessarily understand. So both Karen and John Henneberry's Capital One card has been canceled. So these are the final payments on those cards.
But are we losing the rewards points as
We
a
didn't
result?
we didn't need rewards points, and there wasn't a ton out there. So we did lose those as upon closing them, but they are closed. And that's one of the things to look at as we move forward. I need to get a card issued to me, but, so we may get, either through Costco or through Capital One to begin with, just a card issue, but then I think looking at how do we get it set up as a business so that we do, do it that way instead of this, because the biggest fear that we've seen through the staff transition as well, the cards are associated with our social security number, and we don't want it affecting our credit, blah, 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 which anywhere I work, cards have always been, associated with the business, you know, say Village of Vernon, Bradley Calder, Village of Vernon, Mike Zalecki, Village of Vernon, Alex Feldy. And then that you control the limit on each card, by going out there. One card may have more than the other, but they can be controlled, and then you get one statement for everybody.
Right.
Or you get a master statement, everybody might get their own statement, but you get that one master statement.
Right, you need a breakdown by the person who charged it so that you can look for receipts and sign-offs and
Yep.
accounts, right?
That's how I've come up.
Yeah,
So that's one thing on the to-do list.
The other comment I had is, thank you for scheduling the payments. Like the ones that are due on February 3rd and the due date, because at least now we can see that they're scheduled,
Oh,
you know, the ACH payments. And then we won't have these late fees and interest charges and everything else
Yeah.
going on, so. Finally, I noticed that, and thank you.
yeah, and that's been, Linda in our office does a lot of that scheduling, so she handles that, and I know she's had a list of that, so, with these cards going away, we'll decrease it for a little bit, but at the same time, we'll have, once we get new cards issued, we'll have to get back, you know, update that schedule.
There are two refunds for dog licenses. Both of them say the animal died. Is there a period of time that, I mean, obviously, if it happens the same week or that you pay for the license, that's one issue, I guess, you know. But if it happens at the end of the year, we still reimburse. I don't know, I haven't ever seen a policy on that or how it is that we decide.
No, you know, these are for ones where people, actually, I think they were purchased in December, and then the dog, you know, passed away a week later, unfortunately. So, you know, we thank our residents for being civic and following our ordinances and licensing their animals. You know, feel sorry for them for losing their animals, but
Always.
traditionally, we wouldn't, you know, after the first year, we most likely wouldn't refund a dog license for somebody whose dog is.
I mean, small amount of money is here involved. I was just curious, because I haven't seen anything policy-wise or even on the license thing, you know, refundable after 30 days or up to 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, we try to work with, you know,
Yeah,
my encouragement is to work with residents, you know. If somebody came in and said, hey, you know, the situation, and, you know, was questioning whether to get one or not, we would work with them on that. You know, vice versa goes for getting that new puppy. The puppy needs to be, at least over 5 months or 6 months, and then they also have the rabies, so some vets, you know, are more keen to give rabies sooner than others, so, that's always there, and that's one of those things too, that we'll work with a resident, you know, hey, we got a dog on December 15th or whatever, not gonna make you necessarily, you know, register that dog for 15 days.
yeah.
At the end of the day, so, it's just working with our residents there, so, that is, you know, one thing.
All the rest of the questions I had involved the fire department that I asked for on the staff meeting. You know, just, what's the rules?
right. There was quite a bit of them, right?
And who's getting all the T-shirts and all that kind of stuff? Is that fire department also?
Which one was that for,
Is the embroidery?
Dragonfly?
Embroidery?
Dragonfly, yeah,
That is for, DPW.
yeah, that's what I thought.
That was, pre-ordered, before Mr.
Okay.
Newberry left, so, I really didn't have a chance to look at it, but the guys did go over there and pick it up. So, 4 guys, or 5 guys worth of stuff, maybe even don't know if you get stuff for the summer guys too in that kind of.
T-shirts was not in the employee manual, to the best of my memory.
Weren't these safety vests and so on? I thought
Might have been some safety vests and sweatshirts.
It says T-shirts,
oh, does it?
yeah.
I'd have to go back. I mean,
I was just,
you know, necessarily if we, it might not be in the employee manual, but if we're supplying it to them, we should most likely keep track of them so that they can be returned to us. What, you know, if they, would leave the village, you know, in a recent time.
Are they like the t-shirts that are basically safety vests and have like
Yeah,
a reflective
yeah,
material on them?
yeah, they're not,
Yeah. I
They're
heard, I saw
embroidered.
safety green, yeah,
they're,
I'm
they
looking at
temporary
it.
shop, but I think they're screen printed on.
right.
oh, yeah.
Silk screened, long t-shirt, short t-shirt, safety green, printed logo on the back. They are t-shirts, yes.
Yeah,
Which is an alternative to wearing the vest.
Right.
If you're
This
not gonna wear
is,
safety stuff, then you need to wear the vest. Preferably,
isn't that in the employee manual? That if you don't wear
yeah.
the vest, you have to wear a, yeah. I think it does say that, actually.
Good.
Okay.
the other, well, those are manual checks, we'll get to those too.
Right.
Motion to approve batch 2023-01-19 for 84,069.20.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. And then before the meeting, Brad, you passed out tax refunds.
Tax refunds and then also settlement checks, I can pass those around if you guys wanna look at them. That's just predetermined by the county, we don't have it, or not the county, I mean, they assist us with it, but we don't have a choice, we need to pay them.
Suffer interest. So those are manual checks.
Yeah, and that's $5.6 million.
Okay, so here's the manual checks, tax settlements.
That's
What
tax-
you're waiving here are refunds to residents. I think what you were.
How do people make overpayments of like $11?
Their mortgage company does. Will do the overpayment, sometimes. So instead of, like I said, with the clearinghouses, sometimes the bank, or their bank will just send them, here's what you had in your escrow account, give it to them, and then rely upon the taxing authority to then reimburse them. Where, sometimes with the bigger ones, people will get nervous that the tax payment's not gonna come in time, or there's confusion on how it's, who's paying and what pay, and then there's a double payment. So, you know, you see a wide variety of overpayments, at times, so it is there, and you'll see underpayments too by the mortgage companies that then fall upon the property owner to pay instead of the mortgage company, you know, paying it in full and then, increasing their escrow payment the following year to cover the underpayment for the previous year.
So is that what the big ones are? Is the mortgage company paying them and then the individual's paying it?
That would potentially be it. I didn't look at them specifically to identify.
Like the very first one. It says, the receipt on the back says 0 cash coming in at 2,900 and we're refunding the 2,900.
So stuff like that, what you'll see too is with some of the, like when a new home is built, if the building permit is pulled after, like right now, and then construction starts, they take occupancy by, you know, September, the tax bill will show that there is, you know, just a vacant lot, so they're only gonna pay a couple $100 in taxes. But then, their mortgage company is figuring that they're going to have a higher escrow amount than what they really need, so then there's that overpayment. But I haven't specifically gone through those.
Yeah, but like this one, we have a tax bill for $2,900. But we're refunding the $2,900.
Double payment. So some people like double pay, cause they get nervous.
Well, they wanna pay before the end of the year, so they write a personal check because the mortgage payment didn't come in time.
Some tax advisors would say paying your mortgage or paying your taxes before the end of the year doesn't matter anymore.
Depends on individual circumstances, but yes, most of the time it does not. On a residential property.
Does for state.
As long as you have $2,500 in, you get your full school tax credit. You pay on time, you'll have your $2,500 in every year. Okay.
So are we approving these as two separate issues?
We can combine them into one, if you would like.
Because we don't have much choice.
On refunds, the refunds, the checks have not been cut. The settlement, we really don't have much choice on, and if we don't pay, if we wouldn't have paid on time, they could assess us interest penalties on it.
Didn't want,
So those are the manuals.
Yes, sir.
The checks.
And the refunds have all cleared the bank.
Yeah, some of them were a little tight on the 10 days, but it looked like they were all the last one. Now, the issue that I have, on the little ones, yeah, it looks like there's a cash receipt on the back from Citizens. I take it these cash receipts are from Citizens. But on the large refunds where the person is double paid, there's only one cash receipt and the balance carries over at zero. Well, why is it zero? We get a property tax bill, just take the first one, full payment $29.84, flip it over, balance is zero, and cash of $29.84. So to me, it's like, well, how can the balance be zero? That's because they processed a mortgage check or a personal check or something, but we don't have any evidence of that, number one. And number two, if that's the case, why are they taking a personal check if it's already shows a balance of zero? I don't get that. You hand them back your check and say, you're paid. I don't get it.
Are you sure the personal check isn't coming in first and then the mortgage check?
That could be, but you can't tell. The very first one, and actually all the big ones are like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, all the big ones are like that. There's one there, Brad mentioned new construction, that looked like new construction. When you got a tax bill of $58 and a mortgage check of $1,300, that's new construction. Most likely. And another one, they made a partial payment, like the first installment, and they're getting it back. I don't quite follow that one at all, but how do we know that they double paid? I guess I don't see the evidence that we double paid. Now, in the past, we used to have some kind of evidence that they double paid. So the first payment we're missing, maybe. The second payment, we had a cash receipt from the bank. But what about the first payment? In other words, how are we sure that they double paid? Because people have made mistakes. First payment is credited to the wrong taxpayer.
We go off the, when we did our first settlement, I did go through the, payment, the bank sends over, spreadsheets of these batches. They have a column for payments and they have a column for overpayments or refunds. And all these refunds tab to the refunds that are listed on the spreadsheet.
So how's that spreadsheet set up? There's two payments, so you can see, like this first one, 2 checks for $29.84 coming in.
I don't know.
It almost has to be.
I don't know if they're relying upon the system to verify, because the system will show, once a payment's been entered, the system will show a payment's been entered. So if Mr. Fortner, sends a check with this for his property, in the morning, they enter it into the software, and then in the afternoon, the mortgage company sends a check, enters it in the software. When they go look at the software, and they go to process it, it's gonna show that it's a already been paid and that a refund needs to be issued for the overpayment.
Yeah, I get that, but my question is, how do we know that they received 2 checks? We used to get copies of those checks. Show it.
We can get those.
Or at least for the large amounts. Well, no, the smaller amounts, you can see there's a cash receipt on them. It's the larger amounts that start with the balance of 0.
You
Like, well,
train the people at Citizens on the process.
they did that internally. We didn't train them.
There's your problem.
Maybe a timing thing in the batches that you talk about. They process one payment under one batch, but it hasn't been posted yet. They can process the second batch, and then the report will come out.
You would catch it in settlement then, because you would be,
You catch it again.
Banyan would catch it,
yeah, you would I mean.
because that first batch would post in the Banyan, and the second batch would also post in the
Yeah,
Banyan.
you would eventually.
And it would kick the
When you
refund
post it,
out.
It already shows it's there.
Yep, and it kicked the refund out.
It would show, because it's, in Banyan, there is a value that's attached to the tax key, and then when you, apply the check to it, the, you know, the outstanding amount is debited or credited, and then zeroes out, or, you know, creates a refund or creates a remaining balance, and then the system knows, and then when you go to settle, it's gonna say, well, here's what you should be at, and here's what you paid, and you'd see that double payment show up, and they wouldn't, necessarily balance, because then you would look to, I think it, there's a thing in there that it either automatically tells you there's a refund, or you click there's a refund, and it knows to balance out. That makes sense.
But then we shouldn't ever see these.
Well, in theory, that's true, but if the person comes in and pays by personal check, and the mortgage check says, here's $1 million, there's 30 properties, you're not gonna bounce the mortgage check, you're gonna have to cash the whole thing. And you've gotta put that $3,000 extra on that property, even though it's already paid. That's one thing that causes the refunds, because people don't wait for the mortgage check because they get worried that it's not gonna make it in time.
Yeah, and most.
The other thing that happens is the mortgage check has been processed and it's hung up, and so the teller just takes the money anyway. Well, they should take the check and hand it right back to them. Your mortgage check came in, it's paid.
And we've had a couple instances where the mortgage companies like paid twice this year, so we'll have.
So that's a mortgage company issue.
Yeah, so we'll have,
Or they changed mortgage companies during the
Yeah,
year.
so we'll-
So they both pay.
Yeah, there's
we did-
instances of that where they have 2 escrows. One's for their first mortgage and one's for their HELOC. So, and they're both being escrowed. I don't know, as a customer, why you agree to that, but they both are.
but we haven't seen that this year, but we did have one mortgage company paid twice on 5 different parcels. So in the next refund go around, that check will be sent back to the clearinghouse where it came from, instead of going to the property owners. And the property owners have to deal with the bank to fight over it. Since the property owners are paid in full, we'll just send it back to them,
Oh, that check.
that check, but most of the time in like where we know the resident is double paid, or there's an overpayment on escrow by, a smaller amount, we'll refund it to the property owner, not refund it to the bank. So, and even if somebody comes to us and says, most of the time, as long as it's been processed in Banyan, we're not deleting out of Banyan and then applying the mortgage check, we're saying, you're gonna have to wait for the refund. And we won't sign over mortgage checks, anything like that.
And there was a time when I did the job that one mortgage company realized they weren't supposed to be paying, so they didn't stop payment on the check. So you don't ever want to not deposit a check that's been paid. If you're better off refunding it if there's an overpayment.
that.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, we'll need a motion. The question is, do we need more information? Or maybe that's your motion, Dan.
The one recommendation I would have for next year would be create a policy that we don't issue any refunds for less than $10. That'd be for next year.
Have to be for next year. Or some amount, 5, 10, 2, whatever.
Whatever you guys are inclined to, but.
Okay,
You know, I would like, I guess I would like these reports or these receipts to actually show what was posted. However, that's something you need to work on for next year, I think, as well. Because if I saw 2 payments coming in on that tax key and we're reimbursing a certain amount, then it makes sense to me.
so do you have a motion or not a motion?
Well, I guess I'll make the motion to approve the tax refunds in the amount of $17,986.10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Yeah, I'm gonna, not that we don't owe them, but I need to see more information on the big one, so I'm gonna vote against it, but that's just me. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? 2 nays?
Mhm.
Motion passes 3-2. Maybe, Brad, you can get more information on the next round of refunds if we can. Thank you. Okay, now you got mileage reimbursement. Do you have something on
And,
that?
manual.
Oh, yeah,
Manual
let's do
checks.
the manual checks.
And we have,
Okay, where's the manual checks? So I'll make a motion to approve the manual checks as presented for tax settlement in the amount of $5,693, let me start again with the number. $5,693,000, $242.42. Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Good for you.
Any discussion on the tax settlements? Of course, this is preliminary, this is not, they get trued up in February, so, if there is a mistake, it'll get trued up, but that's the other thing about these January settlements, they do get trued up. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 on those manual checks. Is that it, or do we got,
we have a mileage reimbursement.
okay?
So at the December 29th meeting, the board took up Ms. Shu's mileage reimbursement from September of 22 to her departure on November 30th of 22. The board approved $164.08 of reimbursement. There was 3 reimbursements from in September that were still in question. The motion that was passed was to table further reimbursement until the full board could be there. And so that is what has been done. And so tonight we just need to decide if those other reimbursements are going to be paid or if we need to have further discussion on them.
And they total,
Looking at that right
I
now.
want to say it was like $50.
yeah, I can't remember what
It
it
was
was.
two
It was
full-
your motion, I remember that, but I
Yeah,
can't
Yeah,
remember.
it's the one that I
That's
just wanted
different.
to go home.
Yeah, well, it was at midnight. We're still.
We were gonna sit there and vote 2-2, and I knew it. So
Right.
That was in the afternoon that day, so that was that motion to table. But that was at, late at night, we tabled to talk about that, but, so we paid $164.08 of it, and I'm pulling the remainder up right now.
Yeah, I didn't bring my notes from that meeting, so I can't help it.
I wasn't thinking. I didn't bring what we had.
That's suppose we can look in the, which meeting was that, December?
December
29th?
15th.
15th. Oh.
15th, it was initially, brought forward.
Oh, okay.
So there was a charge for, on September 3rd, pick up supplies at New Berlin Costco, 20.5 miles for $20.40, which doesn't add up, does it? And then there was pick up voting materials for 25 at the county on the 13th, 25.5 miles, 15.94. And then pick up election supplies at McGuanago Post Office, 6 miles, 3.75. Pick up, go to Citizens Bank to make change for $100 bill, $4.38. And then I think that was all that we, and then there was, I think, one charge on, just on October 3rd, for $3.38. That was, still there, so.
What did you say didn't add up? I didn't follow.
The first one, 20.5 miles to Costco, and it should have been, IRS mileage is.
62 and a half?
That wouldn't add up, that's like $1 a mile.
Oh,
Even the change, making change at the bank, what, was she taking money from the office? She wasn't working in the office here anymore, was she?
yeah.
And a treasurer then.
Okay, here we go. Brad, how much did we approve?
I believe it was 6408, and 50 of that was for,
So we approved more than that, I thought.
50 of that was for
Phone.
phone. So it would have been 11408.
Hold on, just a second.
And the mileage is
I guess the mileage, if you use Google Maps,
What?
it says 10.5 miles
to,
Costco from Village Hall.
that's if she was going from Village Hall that day. Who works on a Saturday?
Yeah, that's Labor Day weekend, isn't it?
Click her house.
So how much did we hang up? $47.85, is that it?
Yeah, roughly. But then that first one is not calculated.
The first one's not calculated right in any respect, right?
And the mileage rate is 60.
62 and a half, right?
So it should be $40.25 should be the total. You said you had 47. So that would be the correction.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, that's why I was asking. Asking which days we hung up. Did we hung up through and including October 3rd because it was outside 60 days?
Yeah, because we went anything through the 7th.
Okay. So that's 47.85, but the first one
Is incorrect.
is overstated. By $7.59. Is that what you got?
How much?
$7.59, is that what you got?
I came with 40.25.
No, the overstatement piece.
Oh, and what,
Oh, okay, so then you subtracted that from the 47.85. Okay, just a second. We'll get to the same spot.
I just added to the mileage together, and then did the 62 and a half.
Oh, so I got 40, oh, I see what you did. What did you get? $40.26?
25, so it's just,
Oh, okay, just a rounding thing, fine.
you want to do 26, that's right.
That's fine, 25 is fine. Okay, so what are we gonna do? This would be a manual check, is that what this is under?
Yeah, this, the $40.26 will be manual.
Move to approve
With that
per your
correction?
corrected amount.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. So
Any,
you corrected it based on the mileage from the house then?
well, from the 20.5 miles, yeah. You said it was 10.5, that's 21 round trip, so,
That's from Village Hall.
yeah, right, so. Okay, so a motion to approve $40.26, and the corrected amount, seconded by trustee Newman. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-2, carried. Minutes, I haven't seen any minutes. We'll table all the minutes.
It'll be ready next time.
Okay, so I'll
We're
table.
gonna have to have a meeting just to approve minutes
Minutes.
pretty soon.
We'll table the village board minutes as listed until February 2nd, 23rd meeting. Is there a second to that tabling?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcement, so we've got February 2nd, next village board, February 8th, a joint village board and plan commission. That will be the continuation of the public hearing on our zoning code amendments.
Does that have to be reposted?
And we
We're gonna
adjourned,
put the updated code on the website, but since it was just adjourned, it does not need to be reposted as a
Okay, that's,
public hearing. So we'll put the updated
Right.
version on the website here, not tomorrow, first thing on Monday morning, so,
right, and that'll be a red line, of course.
yeah. Which will be more than 2 weeks ahead of the.
Right.
okay.
Yes, we need to get that up. And then we've got February 16th, 7 o'clock. Of course, we talked about staff, and we talked about, in the past, the artesian cell towers special meeting. So those are not listed because we haven't set dates. 9:45.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.